March 17, 1943, Turpipstrasse 76-78, Berlin. The folder slammed against the mahogany desk with such force that the Admiral's porcelain coffee cup trembled. Drops of dark liquid splashed across classified reports. Had the Gestapo discovered them stained and compromised, everyone in that room would have been sentenced to death. Impossible. Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, chief of the German Military Intelligence Service, stared at the document as though it were a hallucination. American propaganda, he wanted to believe. Lies whispered through turned agents. But the numbers stared back at him, relentless and cold. Through the tall windows of the Abwehr headquarters, Canaris could see the Landwehr Canal, where Rosa Luxemburg's body had been dumped 24 years earlier. That memory lingered like a warning. Now, in his trembling hands, he held an intelligence report that did not merely challenge Nazi propaganda. It shattered the mathematical foundation of German victory. According to intercepted communications and reports from agents still operating in Mexico City, the Willow Run plant of the Ford Motor Company was producing one B-24 Liberator heavy bomber every hour. One bomber every 60 minutes. A machine composed of 1.5 million individual parts, 450,000 rivets, 30,000 separate components. An 18-ton aircraft emerging from an assembly line faster than Germany could manufacture a single Kubelwagen military vehicle. Major Friedrich Wilhelm Heinz, standing rigidly at attention before Canaris's desk, had triple-checked the intelligence. The numbers remained unchanged. What neither man yet understood was that this moment would ignite the most catastrophic intelligence failure of the modern era, the systematic inability of German intelligence to comprehend, believe, or communicate the real scale of the United States industrial machine. A miscalculation of such magnitude that it would condemn the Third Reich through sheer mathematical inevitability. The beginning of the collapse. The collapse of German intelligence regarding American production had begun 2 years earlier. In 1941, Luftwaffe General Karl Köhler delivered a report to Hermann Göring, drafted by the military attaché in Washington, General Friedrich von Boetticher. It warned that American aircraft production was nearing 2,000 planes per month. Göring laughed, literally laughed. The Americans build refrigerators and razor blades, he scoffed, not military aircraft. He repeated the claim to Hitler inside the Wolfschanze, the Wolf's Lair, in December 1941, just 4 days after Pearl Harbor. Boastful Americans, Göring declared. Their democracy makes them weak. Their mixed population makes them inefficient. Their Jews poison them from within. It is impossible that they can produce what they claim. But by March 1943, German intelligence networks across the Americas were reporting something that defied every pillar of Nazi racial ideology and economic dogma. Reports converged from every direction. Mexican industrialists sympathetic to Germany, Spanish diplomats, Swedish businessmen visiting Detroit, intercepted letters from American factory workers to relatives in neutral countries. All told the same impossible truth. Ford's Willow Run plant alone was manufacturing more heavy bombers than the entirety of Germany's aircraft industry combined. Commander Nikolaus Ritter, head of the Abwehr's Air Intelligence Section, had spent 3 weeks analyzing the data. He was a former Lufthansa pilot who had lived in the United States for a decade before the war. He understood American industry better than most German officers ever could. From his Manhattan apartment in the late 1920s, he had watched the Chrysler Building rise into the sky. He had witnessed Americans construct the tallest building in the world in less than 2 years. In the United States, the impossible often arrived ahead of schedule. Ritter briefed Canaris quietly, with the tone of a man reporting a tragedy already written. If these numbers are correct, and I believe they are, then Germany has already lost the war, he said. Now it is only a matter of mathematics and time. The Mexican connection. The intelligence arrived through dangerous channels. Every source risked exposure, torture, execution. Georg Nicholas, who ran the Abwehr's primary network in Mexico City, had cultivated agents among American businessmen traveling between Detroit and the Mexican oil fields. These men spoke freely over dinner, unaware that their casual boasts were being transcribed word for word. On February 3, 1943, American oil executive Harold Morrison attended a reception held by the German-Mexican Trade Association. After several shots of tequila, he began describing his recent Ford-arranged tour of Willow Run. "Gentlemen," Morrison said, unaware that Wolfgang Blau, an Abwehr agent posing as an Argentine leather trader, was memorizing every detail. "What I saw defies description. The assembly line stretches more than a mile. The building is so vast that clouds form inside it. Sometimes it literally rains indoors." He leaned closer, lowering his voice in reverence. "They have 42,000 workers, including thousands of women. Black women, too, building the most complex machine humanity has ever created." Morrison pulled out a pencil and sketched on a napkin. "The bomber has 2 bomb bays, each able to carry 4,000 pounds of ordnance. 4 engines, 1 200 horsepower each. They build it in modular sections. Ford calls them sub-assemblies. They flow like rivers joining the sea. Wings arrive from one direction, fuselages from another, tail assemblies from a third. They meet at precise points along the line." Blue, feigning casual interest, asked, "Surely something so complex must constantly break down." Morrison laughed. "That's what Consolidated Aircraft said. They mocked Ford. You can't build airplanes like automobiles." But Ford divided the bomber into 60,000 separate tasks. Each worker performs one task again and again. A mother who cooked breakfast yesterday now installs hydraulic lines in a tail section today. They train in days, not months. The machinery of war and the intelligence collapse. Perhaps the most detailed accounts came from Franco's Spain. Colonel José Ungría, the Spanish military attaché in Washington, cultivated close relationships with American aircraft manufacturers while secretly providing Germany with intelligence in exchange for crucial tungsten shipments. In March 1943, Ungría attended a reception at the Argentine embassy, where he met Charles Sorensen, head of production at Ford and the architect of Willow Run. Believing he was speaking to a representative of a neutral nation who might purchase aircraft after the war, Sorensen spoke freely about the plant's staggering capacity. "When I first visited the Consolidated plant in San Diego in 1940, they were building B-24s outdoors under the sun, each one unique, each requiring 180,000 man-hours," Sorensen explained. "I knew we could do better. We would build bombers the way we build automobiles. Not by crowding workers around a stationary plane, but by moving the plane past the workers. Each person performs specific tasks repeatedly, achieving perfection through repetition." Ungría, pressing for labor details, asked about the challenges of such complexity. "We built a training school that graduates 8,000 workers every week," Sorensen said proudly. "Women make up 40% of our workforce. They excel at detailed work. Their smaller hands fit tighter spaces, and they are patient with repetition. Black workers operate sophisticated machinery. Boys of 16 manage supply logistics. Democracy means using every available human resource." Through Swedish, Argentine, Japanese, and Turkish channels, German intelligence received consistent reports confirming Willow Run's prodigious production rate. Swedish engineer Erik Lundberg, who visited in March 1943, reported, "The plant operates with efficiency that defies European comprehension. They use 1/600 specialized machine tools, many designed for single operations. The capital investment is staggering, perhaps 200 million in tools alone." A coded message from Japanese Commander Toshikazu Omi to Tokyo, intercepted by German intelligence, offered independent verification. This single factory produces more aircraft per month than the entirety of Japanese aviation. By April 1943, German intelligence had collected exhaustive data from 17 independent sources, confirming the staggering pace of production. Willow Run alone produced 650 B-24s per month at peak capacity, while total American B-24 output surpassed 1,400 monthly. Desperate for concrete evidence, Canaris authorized Operation Pastorius, deploying saboteurs to the United States via submarines. George John Dash, leader of one of two four-man teams, had lived in the U.S. for 20 years before returning to Germany in 1939. His mission was clear: collect information on aircraft production before attempting sabotage. Landing at Amagansett, Long Island, in the early hours of June 13, 1942, Dash quickly realized the impossibility of the task. The scale of American industrial capability was overwhelming. Within days, he surrendered to the FBI, revealing intelligence that stunned his American captors. Canaris himself told me Berlin does not believe their production figures, Dash confessed. They think Willow Run is propaganda. I was asked to provide photographs, employee counts, shipment records, proof that would force Göring to accept reality. FBI agent Charles Landman expressed incredulity. They don't believe we're producing a bomber every hour? Dash laughed bitterly. Agent Landman, I lived here. I've seen the automobile factories. If Ford could build a car every minute before the war, surely they could produce a bomber every hour during it. I was accused of defeatism. The 54th birthday of Hitler, April 20th, 1943. On Hitler's 54th birthday, Canaris personally presented the intelligence to Göring at Karenhall, the grandiose hunting estate of the Reich Marshal north of Berlin. The meeting would become legendary among German intelligence officers for Göring's total rejection of reality. Canaris laid out photographs, intercepted documents, and reports from dozens of sources, spreading them across Göring-Assas' massive oak table like cards that could determine the fate of a game. Herr Reichsmarschall, Canaris began carefully, we have confirmation from 17 independent sources. The Ford Willow Run plant is producing one B-24 Liberator every hour at peak capacity. This rate has been consistent since January. Göring, weighing over 280 pounds at the time, picked up one of the photos showing the assembly line stretching into the distance. "Do you take me for a fool?" Göring said dismissively. "These are obviously models, propaganda props. The Americans want us to believe they can build airplanes like sausages. This Willow Run plant probably produces 50 bombers a month at most." Canaris pulled out another document, an intercepted Pennsylvania Railroad manifest showing aluminum shipments. The plant consumes 7.2 million kilograms of aluminum per month, more than our entire monthly production. Göring laughed harshly. "Where do they get this aluminum? From their black workers? From their riveters? Canaris, you have been deceived by American propaganda." Confronting reality. A week after the Karenhall meeting, Canaris was summoned to the Wolfschanze to report directly to Hitler. Present were Generals von Kluge and von Jodl, and Minister of Propaganda Joseph Goebbels. Hitler, studying maps of the Eastern Front where the Wehrmacht was preparing for Operation Citadel, the Battle of Kursk, listened impatiently as Canaris presented the intelligence. "Mein Führer," Canaris began, knowing he risked his life, "if the Americans are producing 1,400 B-24s per month, plus an equivalent number of B-17s, along with their fighters and the British output, the aerial bombardment of the Reich will soon overwhelm our defensive capacity." Hitler's response was typical. "Admiral, the Americans are capable of mass-producing simple goods, cars, refrigerators, but a bomber is not a car. It requires precision, skill, and dedication. We spent 6 years preparing for this war. They claim to have achieved it in 16 months. Impossible." General von Jodl, studying Canaris's figures, attempted a calculation. "Even if we accept a quarter of these numbers as accurate, They are false, Hitler interrupted. The Americans entered the war in December 1941. To construct this miraculous factory and achieve this production in so little time is impossible. Unbeknownst to the Nazi leaders, Canaris had obtained film of Willow Run in full operation via contacts in Swiss intelligence. Smuggled through Spanish diplomatic channels, the footage lasted 5 minutes, showing the mile-long assembly line in action. B-24s passed through each stage with precise cadence. Men and women, black and white, performed their tasks with mechanical accuracy. Clocks visible in several shots confirmed the timing. "My God," Hans Oster whispered. "It's true." Canaris set the film alight with his lighter. "We cannot show them this. They would accuse us of creating false images, or of treason." In November 1943, German intelligence obtained aerial photographs of Willow Run taken by a Spanish diplomat. Analysts spent weeks studying the images. Conclusions: parking lots held roughly 12,000 vehicles, indicating 3-shift operations. Finished B-24s were visible on adjacent airfields. 47 planes ready for delivery. The assembly line was visible through skylights. Airplanes were spaced precisely as reported. Railroad tracks delivered materials in dozens of freight cars. Hedman Bernard wrote, "Photographic evidence confirms human intelligence. The production rate appears accurate. I recommend immediate strategic re-evaluation." Göring dismissed the photographs as clever American manipulation, probably using scale models. Dr. Albert Speer, Hitler's Minister of Armaments and the only Nazi leader with genuine industrial knowledge, secretly accessed the intelligence. His diary entry, discovered after the war on May 15, 1943, revealed his despair. If the Willow Run figures are even remotely accurate, we do not face defeat, but annihilation. They produce more aircraft in 1 month than we do in a year. Yet I cannot speak this truth. Doing so would be my death sentence. Dr. Otto Ohlendorf, head of the SD Inland and trained economist, analyzed U.S. industrial data. His December 1943 report to Himmler was blunt. Ford Motor Company's peacetime production in 1941 was 1.1 million vehicles. They have converted this capacity to bomber production at the current rate. By June 1944, Americans will have produced enough B-24s to deliver the entire tonnage of the 1940 London bombing every single day. On Christmas Eve 1943, Canaris received intelligence projecting U.S. production for 1944. B-24 Liberators, 18,000. B-17 Flying Fortresses, 12,000. B-29 Super Fortresses, 1,000. Fighters, 40,000. Total, 86,000 aircraft. Hitler as reaction. The Americans claim they will produce more aircraft in 1944 than any nation in history. Absurd. By February 1944, Canaris was removed from his post, suspected of defeatism and treason. His replacement, Walter Schellenberg, was a loyal Nazi who dared not contradict Hitler or Göring. Yet reality could not be denied forever. On February the 20th, 1944, the pivotal week, the U.S. 8th Air Force launched Operation Argument, deploying over 1,000 heavy bombers against German aircraft factories. In 6 days, they dropped more bombs than the Luftwaffe had over Britain during the entire Blitz. Luftwaffe fighter pilot Adolf Galland reported to Göring, "Marshal, I counted more than 800 bombers in a single formation. They are real planes, dropping real bombs." On June 6, 1944, over 11,000 Allied aircraft appeared over France. The Luftwaffe could muster fewer than 300 fighters in response. Field Marshal Hugo Sperle sent a desperate message to Berlin. "The enemy's air superiority is absolute. Our intelligence was correct. We were not deceived by the Americans. We deceived ourselves." The triumph of production and the collapse of ideology. By April 1944, Willow Run had reached its peak production rate. Employees working 2 9-hour shifts, 6 days a week, produced 453 aircraft in 468 hours. A B-24 Liberator completed every 63 minutes. The plant employed 42,331 workers, including 11,000 women, who comprised 26% of the workforce. 3,800 African American workers, nearly 9% of the total, operated sophisticated machinery. When 200 workers with disabilities represented 3% of the staff. The demographic reality of Willow Run directly contradicted the Nazi ideology of racial and biological supremacy. In every measurable metric, so-called inferior races and weaker groups outproduced the German master race by orders of magnitude. After the war, surviving German intelligence officers revealed the full scope of the failure. Walter Schellenberg testified at Nuremberg, "We knew the truth about American production by early 1943. All professional intelligence officers understood the figures were accurate, but to speak this truth was to risk execution for defeatism." Hans Oster, Canaris's deputy, was executed on April 9, 1945, at Flossenburg concentration camp. Canaris himself was executed the same day. Alexis von Roon was executed in October 1944 for his role in the July 20th plot. Only a few, like Hansburn Gavius, escaped to Switzerland and survived. Post-war studies on U.S. strategic bombing confirmed what German intelligence had reported. Between 1942 and 1945, Willow Run produced 8,785 B-24s. Peak production was 650 aircraft per month, with hourly rates maintained for months. Albert Speer, in post-war interrogations, explained why Germany refused to believe U.S. intelligence. To accept that Ford could produce a bomber every hour was to accept that our entire worldview was wrong, that democracy was not weak but strong, that racial diversity did not produce weakness but strength, that women could perform the work of men. To acknowledge this was to admit we had started a war we could never win. Who would tell Hitler? Among the thousands who built these bombers was Rose Willow Monroe, the real-life inspiration for Rosie the Riveter. She operated a rivet gun on the B-24 production line. She and thousands of other women had never worked in industry before Pearl Harbor. "We knew we were building something important," Monroe said in a 1984 interview. "Every rivet we drove was part of ending the war. Sometimes we worked double shifts, sleeping in the parking lot between shifts. Our brothers, husbands, and boyfriends were flying these planes." The German disbelief in Willow Run's output had catastrophic consequences. Fighter production. Germany continued producing bombers well into late 1944, underestimating the scale of the Allied air threat. Resource allocation. Resources were wasted on extraordinary weapons instead of practical defensive measures. Strategic planning. Operations were designed to meet hundreds of bombers, not thousands. Diplomatic failures. Peace proposals were delayed due to misunderstanding the certainty of defeat. Economic analysis of captured documents revealed the true cost of Willow Run, $200 million. The total investment of the German aircraft industry between 1933 and 1945 was only $400 million. Willow Run, 3.5 million square feet, dwarfed the combined 8 million square feet of all German aircraft factories. Its electricity consumption of 2.5 million kilowatts per month exceeded that of entire German cities. By the war's end, the full scale was undeniable. Total B-24s produced 18,188. Willow Run, 8,685. B-17s, 12,731. Total U.S. aircraft production 1940-1945, 33,717. Total German aircraft production 1940-1945, 94,700. The United States produced 3.2 times more aircraft than Germany during a two-ocean war. Historians recognize the German intelligence failure regarding American production as one of the most consequential in military history. It was not a failure of collection. German agents gathered precise, detailed information. It was a failure of acceptance. Leaders refused to believe intelligence that contradicted their worldview. Dr. Karl Wienberg concluded, German intelligence accurately assessed American production by early 1943. Had this information been believed and acted upon, Germany could have sought peace 2 years earlier, saving millions of lives. Lessons from the Willow Run saga. Cognitive bias. Accurate intelligence can be rejected if it contradicts core beliefs. Ideological blindness. Political ideology can override mathematical reality. Systemic failure. Intelligence systems that punish unwelcome truths invite comfortable lies. Fatal miscalculation. Underestimating the enemy leads to catastrophic errors. At the Yankee Air Museum in Willow Run, 1985, Rosie Willow Monroe met former Luftwaffe pilot Hans Rudel. "How did they build so many so fast?" Rudel asked. "Sweetheart," Monroe replied, "we just went to work every day and did our job. Nothing extraordinary. You just step in, build bombers, and leave. Democracy isn't complicated. It's just free people doing their best." Rudel shook his head. "They told us democracy made you weak, your diversity made you inefficient. They lied, and those lies killed millions." In the ruins of Berlin, May 1945, U.S. intelligence officers discovered one last German intelligence report on Willow Run, dated April 20, 1945, Hitler's final birthday. Confirmed, Willow Run's production. "We reported this truth 2 years ago. They did not believe us. Germany did not die from lack of intelligence, but from the inability to trust intelligence that contradicted their desires. Let future generations learn. Reality does not bend to ideology. Mathematics does not yield to mythology. Ignored truth becomes tragedy." The report was never delivered. By then, Hitler was in his bunker. The Third Reich had only days to live, while thousands of American bombers, many built at Willow Run, delivered the final verdict that German intelligence had tried to present 2 years earlier. The historical judgment is clear. German intelligence was excellent. Its acceptance was catastrophic. In the failure to believe uncomfortable truths lies a warning to all nations. Reality does not care what you believe. Those who deny it in favor of ideology will ultimately be destroyed by it. Willow Run built more than bombers. It proved that democracy works, diversity strengthens, and freedom produces. German spies counted everything. German leaders believed nothing. That disbelief killed the Third Reich as surely as any bomb.